Hello and welcome along to an iPredict All-Ireland Final Show preview, and we're also going to look back on the Corofin GAA fundraising competition. We're brought to you today by Unbound Media, and we've pulled in some big hitters today to join us on this show. Firstly, alongside us here is Paul Flaherty from the What's the Score app. Paul, a busy time I'd imagine with the club scene coming back on?
Thanks very much, Jonathan and Unbound, for having me this evening. Yeah, very busy with the What's the Score over the last few weeks and months now. There's a lot of club championship, especially in Galway with the football last week, and the hurling is starting this weekend. So the buzz around the app and everything is it's really powerful. So yeah, all good.
Well, it's All-Ireland final weekend, and we have pulled in some All-Ireland medals. Not forgetting you, Paul, you have your one in there as well if you want to get that out of the way. But we do have Gary Sice from Corofin and Galway, of course, on the line as well. We've gone down south, and we'll go easy on him for a while as well. I think it's 4 just to get out of the way, Seán O'Sullivan. And a little later on, we will have, to get the Mayo perspective, we have Enda Varley, of course, the Mayo footballer of some regard as well. But let's get to it, folks. We'll look back on the Corofin game, because that was a huge bit of excitement really in the last couple of while. I suppose we'll go to Corofin straight away. We'll go to Gary Sice. Gary, how did you enjoy the Corofin game? Did you have a good bit of fun? I know we had a good bit of fun in the preview show here. How did you find it? Did you get a good bit of laugh out of it the last couple of months?
Yeah, it was a bit of crack. The league tables were interesting. My wife was actually more involved in it than I was, believe it or not. She got into it very, very strongly. She was enjoying the guesswork involved in that, and I know my dad got involved in it as well. Really enjoyed it. So yeah, it was it made for interesting conversations along the way.
Absolutely, and the leaderboard, we're looking at it, it's quite tight on the top. You'll have to forgive the pronunciation because some of them are really kind of we're waiting to see how the Mayo game will go. But I suppose one of the biggest talking points in it, and one of the biggest, I suppose, Paul, will come to you as well, is with the hurling side of town. I suppose you can't really start this conversation without talking about Limerick.
Yeah, like the season itself was just was incredible really. Before the season even started, I was going with Galway because they had such a great league campaign, and then unfortunately for us, they just didn't perform against Dublin, and it was hard to come back from that. So as everyone was talking about, it was Limerick that just really powered through. They had a fantastic season, and even like, let's say, when Dan Morrissey and Aaron Glan came on in the Munster final, like you just seen how much of an impact they had, and once they gel together, they're just an unstoppable force, and people are they're saying that they're going to go get 1 or 2 more, but hopefully the likes of Cork, now that came of age this year, maybe cleared, that we're just a whisker away from beating Cork. Hopefully they'll come and challenge them, because we don't want another Dublin like if what Limerick did. So yeah, but overall a fantastic season, and it was with COVID and everything, thank God it ran off smoothly and everything went well.
Well, it might be a welcome distraction for down in Kerry, but pull in and welcome to the show for tonight as well, Seán O'Sullivan. Seán, yeah, you're probably glad to be talking about hurling for a split second.
Yeah, I'm going to try and talk about it anyway, Jonathan. To be honest with you, we were hanging out in the green room there earlier on, and when I heard I was asked to be, I was going to be talking about hurling, it kind of took me by surprise. But anyway, let's go with it. We actually had some interesting hurling news down in Kerry during the week. Fintan O'Connor obviously has decided to leave the Kerry role as manager of our hurling team. Fintan did some great work with the lads in his tenure down here. Disappointed that they lost in the Joe McDonagh final to a very, very good Westmeath team. But obviously we got the news during the week that Stephen Malumphey, the former Waterford player, is taking up the reins. I was talking to my club mate, Donncha Walsh, who was the physio for the Kerry hurlers under Fintan's reign, and he was mentioning that the current Kerry panel are very excited by the announcement of Malumphey. So a bit of hurling news down here during the week. But yeah, to echo what Paul said there, I mean, God, you can't but admire Limerick. Like, I mean, you know, I suppose we were all hoping for a close final, and I have a Cork neighbour here who's been to every game, and we were even talking about it. Cork have, you know, really, really came to the table there this year as well, with some very good, young, exciting, fast forwards. But geez, they had no answer to Limerick's physicality and their pace and their strength and just their pure skill. You know, when you put all that together, it's very hard to stop. So even though I agree with Paul that we don't want to see one team dominate the way Dublin did in football, it's going to take a very, very good team to stop Limerick. But I suppose that's the thing. It's that's the task now handed over to everyone else to see can they bridge the gap.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I suppose to bring in you, Gary, in as well, and not to, draw comparisons between the two sports, but you've been involved in successive victories under teams that have gone on, they've gone through the grind, they've done it over and over and over again. That has to be difficult. Like, you obviously had the Corofin team that, hasn't, many would regard as one of the greatest teams of the modern era, particularly in the club scene. How difficult is it to keep that motivation, keep that hunger going, to just because often you see so many teams, they win one and that's enough, but how difficult is it to keep that drive going?
Surprisingly, when you're in it, it's not that hard because it's an awful enjoyable situation. I think Limerick are actually in that lovely sphere at the moment whereby what they're doing is not hard. Nothing about what they're doing is hard. I'd say going training Tuesday evening is exciting. In Paul Flaherty, they've got possibly the coach in the country at the moment. He's coming from a place of huge knowledge and huge education away from the field, and then he's bringing that and he's able to transfer it onto lads who are able to take in information, and that's an exceptional role to be able to do. The other thing is too, the games are of huge benefit to them. They're playing the top counties that would regularly beat them in the past and would have done it over and over again, and they're now creating history against the so-called household powerhouses of Cork and these guys, and they don't fear them. And when you get to that situation and that sphere, it's going to be a very, very difficult thing to stop them. And regardless of what people think of other counties and the work they're doing, when you have that momentum, it's a dangerous place to be. And it's going to be very, very hard to stop that Limerick team for next year or two.
Yeah, unbelievable. And I suppose, Paul, just to bring you back in here again, I think the one game that kind of sets to light really is that Tipperary game. At half-time, they were on the racks, they had questions to answer, and it was a case of, it was almost a game that defined the whole year really, because the talk had been all the time was what would happen when the question marks were asked against Limerick. We saw Galway run them close, probably unfortunate with the way a couple of key injuries last year, but by God did Limerick answer all those questions and talk about setting down a marker for the season ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Kiley got the team selection he wanted to see. Can lads actually step up to the plate? And then it kind of maybe backfired a small bit. And you could see at half time that Liam Sheedy was clapping in the Tipperary lads. They were up by
mad scenes, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, he was clapping like as if the game was over, like, but and he was seriously motivated. But then just like Limerick, I think in the second quarter, I think it was 110 to 2 points. And you talk about these water breaks and how just influential they are in the modern day game. So they really, that kind of maybe put this the foot forward for Limerick, and they just powered on from there. And to go back to like Gary's point, like once you have that momentum, it's unbreakable really. It's nothing you can train, it's nothing that you can like teach really. It just comes naturally, the winning, they can't stop losing. They just find a way all the time, and I think that's probably Gary and Corofin had that there for a long number of years. And I'd say they are really enjoying the moment and the celebrations that in Limerick.
Just on that actually, Seán, it'd be fascinating to know, obviously look, the Kerry teams are renowned for winning over and over and again, and look, you just look at the number of All-Ireland titles. But your point of view, Seán, like, you've been involved in teams that were pretty much going to the well every year as well. On the biggest scale of them all, like, do you echo what the guys say, that it gets easy when you're like that, or surely still has to be a big challenge?
Well, it is a challenge, but I think that's what that's why it's, you enjoy it so much, that the challenge is there to come back every year and try and better what you did the previous year. And you drive it from within as well. I'm sure Gary will tell you the same from Corofin there. The leaders come to the fore and they bring the rest of the lads with you. And even though the faces might change every now and again in the setup in terms of your team and your squad, the mantra or the belief of what you're trying to achieve doesn't change. You're all after the same goal at the end of the year, and that's to win the All-Ireland. So regardless of who's wearing the jersey, that's you're there to represent Kerry or Corofin or Galway or Limerick, whoever it may be. When you put on that jersey, you're expected to perform to the best of your ability. So that'll never change regardless of who's there. So the leaders come to the fore within the group and pull everyone else with them, and that's what I definitely found in that team, that Kerry team, definitely of the noughties that got to 7 All-Ireland finals in a row, and that you had real leaders standing up every year. We'd come back in November or December when you were allowed to that time. And the same guys were there just driving you on. And then all of a sudden you got your chance in the team and you became a leader. So that's what it's all about. It's about creating the right environment, and right now Limerick have that both on and off the pitch, and when you've got that going, it's a great bond, and it's very, very difficult to break.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And look, it's almost remarkable when you say that 7 All-Ireland, appearances in a row is some going. We'll have to go a little bit closer to home very quickly. I think a lot of people on the game, when we did on the preview show, Paul, looked at, thinking that this was Galway's chance to get back. There was a lot of hope coming into the start of the year. Disappointment in the end, ultimately.
Yeah, absolutely. And Seán O'Neill has obviously stepped away. Obviously the last 2 years haven't gone the way that they wanted to. And Joe Canning has now retired. It's going to be, I'm not sure, Galway kind of in a bit of a rebuilding kind of a phase there, but they have minor teams coming through, under 21s, like Fintan Burke, Shane Cooney, Brian Concannon, they're all kind of coming to the fore there. So I wouldn't be too down about the future of Galway. I think there is serious talent there. I think the manager, the vacancy is open there. It'll be very interesting to see who will get it. I know Davy Fitz has been rumoured. He brings a lot of energy, yeah, that's one word. Same energy that Seán will bring now to a team. Overall, a disappointing year for Galway, but I think they will bounce back. Everyone kind of had them as number 2 to Limerick at the start of the year, and I thought the same, especially after the league. They had a great league, and just the championship, it just didn't fall. It didn't fall right for them. But I think if they get, they obviously need a new manager. He'll bring new energy, new ideas, innovative, new players into the setup. So I wouldn't be too downbeat yet.
And I suppose just to bring the kind of the hurling conversation towards an end, you've touched on it there with Seán O'Neill going. Davy Fitzgerald has left Wexford. It's a complete conveyor belt of the manager go around at the moment. You look down through it. Even today, now we have Matty Kenny being announced that he's staying in Dublin, so that's one less out of the equation. We all thought that the Waterford tip kind of crisscross was going to happen. It didn't. We have now Brendan Egan in charge there as well. It's a crazy time of year.
Yeah, it is, yeah. And I think Seán could get the Kerry job there, the way he's talking there. He's mad into hurling now.
Will we go to Seán and ask him, has he the inside scoop on who the next couple of senior managers are going to be? Any comment there, Seán?
The hurling ones?
Yeah.
Or the football ones?
We'll leave the football later on the show as well. You're just showing off now.
There's a lot of football vacancies as well. I suppose, you mentioned Davy Fitz there. Would he be exactly what Galway need? Is it something that they need? As Paul said there, they've lost Joe Canning. Seán O'Neill has stepped away. Maybe they're at a point now where they need someone like Davy Fitz to come in. A lot of young players, obviously, to pick from successful minor and under 20 teams. Obviously, that won't happen overnight. But Davy Fitz has proved in the past that he's very good working with that type of age group. He's proven with LIT, wasn't this, that he worked with a lot of those college players. So maybe that's a strength of his. So I know Davy courts a lot of media attention, and you get, everyone knows what you get with Davy in terms of his game day persona, but obviously he knows what he's doing. So it might be a match made in heaven. So I personally like to see Davy have a crack with the tribesmen.
And how about you, Gary? Any preferences to who you would like to see in charge of the hurlers next year?
I don't know about Davy Fitz now, but he'd bring his own blend to it. All right. I suppose Joe is the big name, big problem we have. How do you replace that? Whatever manager comes in is going to have a lot of good, healthy players coming through the underage system, but that's where the problem has been for years and years and years with Galway. How do we transfer that across? Maybe it's time to stay internal and get someone who's been involved in under 20s and minors over years there and try and get them to bring through a few. Does that mean winning Ireland's? It might not initially over a 3-year period, but if we can get someone internal to stay there and get them lads 24, 25, where they can now compete at senior, that might be the way forward. So interesting winter, no doubt, and hopefully it'll be someone who genuinely wants to be there, not someone who's just breezing through for a while.
Yeah,
we need something concrete.
Yeah, I think they need someone fairly quick as well. Like, you don't want it to kind of go on, like, because the Galway Senior Hurling Championship is starting now, and it's a great place to see, like, the big games between Mellows and Cappy now this weekend, and other games like Turlock and Crowell. It's a good chance to see. You could bring in a few lads if the new management was in place. You could go around, because I know Darry Egan was down in Chadwick's Wexford Park, looking at club championship games there for John, because he's the new manager of Wexford. So I think the longer it goes on, the worse I think it gets. I think they need to get someone as quick as possible. Last
thing on before we wrap up hurling, I just have to come to you on this. One of the names mentioned, I think a lot of people would like, is Micheál Dunnó to come back in charge. You worked with him. How good is he? Everybody that has been involved that I've talked about previously is raving about him. Obviously he delivered whatever what many people failed to do previously. How good is he to play under?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I worked with him. I tried. No, he's a fantastic manager. He just the one thing that he always wants is to set the standard. And he's always pushing he was always saying to Davy Burke, all the senior players, the Manions and everything, you got to push the standards for training, even if it's just like a small 6-on-6 tackling drill, or if it's a shooting drill or whatever it may be. Donoghue always was pushing lads to their full ability. So he's very, I would highly rate him. It'd be great to see him back in the Galway setup. I don't know, I think they were kind of saying he left because of personal reasons and stuff like that, but hopefully I would love to see him back in the management role for Galway. Okay, well that wraps up the small ball talk for the time being. We're going to venture back to a game that I think, and a competition that grabbed everyone's attention last week. It had huge viewing figures. Everybody was enthralled in the sporting world. It was, of course, the ladies' football final, where Meath, that remarkable story where they've just come through the ranks and they stopped the 5 in a row, Seán. Seán, I'm sure you watched the game last week as well, but just how impressed were you with that Meath side?
Oh, fantastic, Jonathan. I suppose they were in an ideal situation really going into the final. I mean, the script couldn't have been written any better for them, because they had caused a huge amount of upsets during the season anyway, most notably beating Cork when the game looked completely gone. You know, the shot clock was nearly up and they were beaten, and they pulled that one out of the fire. So to get into the final then against raging hot favourites in Dublin, who were going for 5 in a row, you know, it was set up perfectly for them. And you know what I found about them, just look, and I don't know any of those girls, but just from their interviews leading up to the game and obviously after it, it's easy to speak after the game, but their sense of belief was just unbelievable. They completely believed in what they were doing. They believed in their manager. They believed in themselves. They believed in their teammates. They just had no fear whatsoever of going in there. And they just played the game perfectly. I think somebody referred to their game plan is that they out-Dublin really in the final. They had some fantastic performances. They come across to me as a very young team, so they had the legs from Croke Park as well, which always helps. They needed to keep the game low scoring as well, which they did. You know, that Dublin senior ladies team have blitzed a lot of teams early on, particularly in games down through the years and a lot of their finals as well. So they kept the score line down, they kept the scoreboard ticking over. And even when Dublin did mount a comeback in the second half, Meath were always able to come up the field and keep that scoreboard ticking, get a score here and there, just to keep that little bit of breathing space. And they ran down the clock at the end brilliantly. So it's fantastic, it's great. Look, we talk about Limerick dominating the hurling, we talk about Dublin dominating the senior football. It's always great to see a new team coming up and changing the roll of honour. It's going to happen in the All-Ireland football as well, which we talk about later. That's always good for the game, no matter what you play.
Absolutely. And Gary, when we spoke, you know, it was a couple of months ago, I think, at this stage now, and we were previewing the ladies' football, it's safely to say I don't think there was one shout for me throughout the room. An indication really of just how huge a success it is for them.
Yeah, and I did a season or two with the Galway ladies only 3 or 4 years ago in the background, giving a little bit of help with the forwards and that. And even then, there wouldn't have been any talk about them even at intermediate level. They were probably second or third in the pecking order. So it's a huge high five to their manager and their backroom team, the work they've done to bring them on that far. They probably had the raw materials from what we could see on Sunday. He had the physicality and he had some good ball players, but he seems to have put it all together into a massive machine there, and they were absolutely outstanding to watch the weekend. One of the most enjoyable games I've seen in a long time, and not because Dublin got beat, it's because the way they did it. They went out and they they just outperformed Dublin, doing what Dublin do, and it was very impressive from all over. We see number 2 coming up kicking 2 points at her ease, and then going back in a block in the far side. Goalkeeper was immense as well, and that's becoming an important position in the ladies' game as well. But just all over the field, they were fantastic, and to see them afterwards, they were very, almost like they kind of half thought this was going to happen. They did believe, as Seán said, and it's a nice thing to see. And also, it's worth mentioning the behaviour of the Dublin ladies team afterwards.
Absolutely.
Immense.
Yeah, no, there was a behaviour of true champions afterwards as well. It's one thing that I think was a video I saw after the round. You know, you had the huge, euphoria on one side, but then the sportsmanship and the grace shown. It was one of those. It's important. I think it is important to touch on because it was just classy act.
And their manager as well, Mick Bohan, isn't it?
It is.
I thought he spoke very well as well after. I think he was speaking to a Meath woman actually, and Aisling O'Reilly, I think, from off the ball. He spoke very well. Obviously very, very disappointed for his own team that they didn't create history, and that maybe a few of them were thinking of retiring, and probably not the way he wanted to see them go. But he always put the attention back onto Meath and what a fantastic performance they put in to achieve the unthinkable, really. So I think that was nice as well. Very, very sportsmanlike of him too.
Yeah, and absolutely, Paul. And if you want to take it one step further, it felt like a huge, I suppose, stepping point for, I suppose, not just sporting in Ireland, but culturally as well. The fact that there was none of the stigma. Everyone got together. You saw wild celebrations from Meath. I suppose it is helped in the fact that they haven't had relative effect. They haven't had much other success recently. But it was just great that everyone got beyond sport for sport, not because of its men's football, ladies football, or whatever. It was just the pure joys of sport.
Yeah, and that comes back to the game, because the game was just unreal in its own sense. I was listening to someone and they were saying a great game, there has to be about 20-30 scores in it, but this game was just kind of end to end, even though there wasn't scores going over all the time. And I think Dublin and Cork have won the last, I think it's 15 finals in a row. I don't think there's been another winner since 2004, 2005 or something. So
which was?
I don't know.
Galway,
right. I was going to say Kerry there, but I was I know it couldn't be Kerry. Yeah, but no, it was just a fantastic occasion, and even to see the Sean Boyle, the players are going over. I think it was Vicky Wall was near him there, just giving him a hug. It's just great that just Mayo people just wanted to see just victorious, whether it's hurling, football, Camogie, Meath, Camogie, whatever it may be. It's just great. It's a great lift for the county. It's a great lift for the ladies football sport in general.
Absolutely. And Gary, I think you touched on it there with your time with the Galway team as well. I think a couple of us were maybe a little bit maroon tinted glasses, and the fact that we were predicting Galway to go all the way we hoped. I suppose a disappointing result in the end to bow to Mayo, but it was still a positive enough year.
Yeah, considering the COVID situation and the way things are, you weren't too sure what you were going to get, and that made the iPredict even harder for a lot of people, because we thought teams were going to come pouring out after league performances and stuff. But yeah, unfortunately for the ladies, just didn't put it on the ground, and they did manage to unearth a few new players. No more than the Galway hurlers now. They've got an awful lot of players coming through the underage, but that transfer from underage to senior is no joke, and it's going to take 2 or 3 more seasons for them to be competitive in it. But let's hope they can get back up there and be competing again.
Absolutely. And I know, Seán, you have a bit of a grow for League of Ireland as well. We did have that. Yeah, we do have the cup final, a cup semi-final, the FAI Cup, set up in kind of a weird Gaelic football side tangent. We had last week in Shelburne in the quarter-final, you had Sarah Rowe has just rejoined the Mayo Star, and Aussie Rules Star as well. I think whatever sport you put in front of her, Star as well, is back playing with Shells a while before she goes back down under again. But you had herself and Saoirse Noonan, the 2 Gaelic footballers, combining together on the All-Ireland of the weekend of the All-Ireland final as well, which was a nice subplot. But you also have, a bit closer to home here in Galway, the Mayo Star, Rachel Kearns, is playing for Galway United, and those 2 teams have been drawn together against each other in the cup semi-final as well. So an interesting little tangent there as well.
Yeah, and it just goes to show, the likes of Sarah Rowe there, the ability to be able to transfer the skill set from one sport to the other. From Gaelic football, I would have like Gary there. I did a couple of years with the Kerry ladies, and we met Mayo a few times. She was just outstanding. I mean, Cora Staunton would have got all the headlines, but Sarah Rowe stood out for me as a real fantastic footballer, and then it was no surprise to see her go down under with I think she was with Collingwood, was it? Brilliant as well down there, and now she's turned her hand to soccer. You know, it just goes to show when you're a talented athlete, you know, you can throw your hands to a lot of different things, and to be able to, as I said, transfer your skill set from one sport to the other is just fantastic. But it's great, and look, it's, you know, we all want to grow up, you know, with somebody to look up to, and, you know, for young girls around the country to see the likes of her, for young girls last Sunday to see that Gaelic that final in Croke Park, and to see the intensity of it, and okay, you know, Dublin will be disappointed, but the joy it brought to the Meath girls, and just in front of a really good crowd in Croke Park, sure, you know, if you weren't a young girl there watching that the other day, to be inspired to go on and play for your county, or to have a hero to look up to, sure, you know, it's fantastic. So, like ourselves, we all had heroes growing up in terms of Gaelic football or whatever it may be. You know, those Meath girls now are heroes to young Meath girls all over the county, and long may that continue.
Absolutely, and I suppose just to briefly touch on that as well, Paul, you have a situation now where the Australian football is becoming a viable career for a lot of Irish girls as well. You see a number of them kind of making that trip under as well. It's great to see as well, getting the exposure on the global world scale.
Yeah, and I think everyone is kind of pushing the ladies, John, not even football, but the camogie, you know, there's a real push there that, you know, equality and everything, like, you know, in sport. So it is great to see that, like, the more exposure they get, the better it is. There's more brands, there's more money, there's more they can filter down towards the clubs, and they can really pump in the facilities there for all the clubs. So yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely, and repeat, what a final! I think one of those finals that everybody was talking about, and will talk about it for a good while longer, and no doubt a lot of celebrations in Meath as well over the long winter. They'll enjoy that one. Just a quick reminder as well, folks, if you do want to get your club on board to have a fundraising game, just contact any of the iPredict social media platforms, and we will get in touch with you there. We're going to have a quick break for 30 seconds, and we'll be right back very soon.
Gaelic Skin Gloves by Tection Sports. Superior dry weather grip with Visco Grip technology. Increases grip by 85% versus standard latex football gloves. Get a grip. Get Gaelic Skin Gloves. Go to TectionSports.com.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to have just a quick look at the league table now as well from that Corofin GAA game. A couple of variations on it, really, and we will see how it develops. It is, of course, banked a good bit on depending on how Mayo will get on, because in second place we have Daz Boy. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, a unique username, but he is 3 points behind at the moment. But the caveat is there's 15 points available if Mayo were to be victorious on Saturday evening, which many people watching will be hoping so. So that could really swing things in their favour there as well. We can see the table on board here as well. But yeah, no, it's been a great entertainment the last couple of months. We had great fun even on the preview show putting it together. And if you do want your club to be involved in it, no doubt it's coming into the winter now as well. Expenses are going to get bigger and bigger, and so like we will see then as well. If you do want to get in touch, just get in touch on any of our social media platforms, and we will get in touch and create your own game and get a bit of fun for your members, and most importantly get a few shillings in as well. Also to cross ports as well, we also have a soccer team under our belt as well called Dove. Have a very, very popular fundraising game as well, mainly focused on the Premier League, but that has been hugely popular since Trevor and the guys there have been on touch, and we can see tangible effects as well from that. And they've made huge investment in their training ground facilities. There's floodlights going in, there's new pitches being involved as well, so it's great to see. So repeat, if you don't want to get on board, just get in touch and we will come back to you. Let's have another 30 seconds break, and then we'll be back with Seán here to discuss his latest product.
Gaelic Skin Gloves by Tection Sports. Superior wet weather grip with Hex Grip technology. Rapidly channels away water through our hexagon grip threads. Get a grip. Get Gaelic Skin Gloves. Go to TectionSports.com.
And welcome back, and delighted to be joined by, I suppose, a clubmate and nothing else, Seán here, who's gone big in the last while. I think we've all had the scourge of trying to catch wet balls on both wet and dry days, issues dropping balls, and you look through the variations. We had a quick chat earlier on. It was, remember back to I think the Misaki gloves was the name of them, the yellow ones with the black dots, that used to get absolutely drenched if there was any bit of water at all, and you'd squeeze a sponge off them. I think I remember even back in my childhood, it's a bit of a deja vu going back here now as well, but I remember there was a grip that my mother got, I think it was from UK at the moment. There was a little gel that we tried, the Hurlin resin, and anyone from Milltown or anyone from any sort of connection to Galway football will know John Blake, but he had this big, his thing was that you turn the gloves inside out and you get an extra bit of grip from them as well. But you've gone one step more. You've taken the medical science approach. You've gone all nerdy with us, and you have your product out and about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it. And the Macassas, like, they're an iconic glove, and I suppose I'm trying to bring the next evolution, like, past even the current gloves that are latex foam. So my own background is in medical device, and came across a lot of different polymers and different materials that we use in medical device.
You're going real nerdy on us here now.
Yeah, and basically just different sticky materials and polymers, and I just figured that they potentially could be used in GAA. Like I found when I was younger playing football a lot, that you'd buy new gloves, and I used to work in Elvery Sports, and they'd fray after, like, you know, maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and you'd see the bits coming off. Like, so I always thought to myself that, you know, somebody's going to come out with new materials here, like, because these aren't up to it. Like, so I didn't think it'd be myself that'd do it, but it turns out that's
here
the way
you are now.
Yeah.
And so you've developed two gloves. You cover every sort of Irish scenario. You have the dry version and the wet version. What's the difference between the two?
Yeah, well, it's actually two different polymers.
Okay.
Like, so, and I suppose the easiest way I like to equate it is, like, you're looking for an extra bit of performance, an extra bit of edge, and, like, I like to equate it to Formula 1, where you have slick tires for dry weather and you've threaded tires for wet weather, and the wet tires. So they're looking to get every inch out of the performance of the tire, and that's the same with it. That's the same concept here. It's slick, a slick polymer for silicone polymer for the dry weathers, and then it's a separate polyurethane for the wet weathers. And the wet then have threaded grips, so that's something else that the current gloves don't have. There's actually grips on them for that extra bit of grip. So that's kind of what you're looking like if you're looking to get that extra bit of performance. And the way I see it is, I was involved in a Milltown club last year, and it's all about stats now and turnovers, and lads are looking to get their turnovers down and get their marks up. Like, so if you want that extra bit edge, you know, that's kind of what we're trying to sell here.
And I think the best comment, I think we spoke about a little bit earlier on as well, was someone said, well, how am I going to hand pass the ball over the bar if the ball is stuck to my hand?
Yeah,
that's not going to happen though, is it?
No. But they do move up to that level on the dry gloves. I have to say, it's really quite grippery. But, like, we've designed it to knock that
there is a release
not going to turn off. Yeah, you can press it. Exactly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But how are you finding things as well? Obviously, a big venture as well. You must have spent many of a man hour involved in with your drawing board and.
Yeah. That's like we'll say with the last year and trying to start a business during COVID. That was a lot of challenges there, and we did have problems with the supply chain and that, but thankfully it's all sorted now, and kind of the ships are back in the sea, as I'd say. And that big blockage, actually, we had product on that blockage that was in Suez Canal.
Did you lose much?
Yeah. Well, it got blocked up anyway, but it came a couple of months later. But definitely challenges there of starting a business this year.
Yeah, no, well, we actually have a competition. We're going to give away a pair of gloves as well, so it's very easy. Well, you get the gloves, they're ready, and shine them off. You'll definitely be seen. I know only the floodlights there at times as well. But for anyone that wants to leave a comment in the message, it's very, very simple. It's just really a prediction of Saturday evening score. What do you think the score will be? I say very easy. But so many people get it right. But all you have to do is just leave your prediction in the comments and tag 2 friends as well. and we'll let that run over the course of the week, and it'll be nothing else. I'll be looking forward to see what some of the score predictions will be. So these ones, forgive my ignorance, so these are the wet grip ones, is that correct?
No, these are the dry ones,
Okay.
yeah. So they're more luminous, yeah.
Oh, so right, yeah, to stand out as well. And then you also have the variant. I'd imagine they're a bit more lighter for the extra sweating that'll be on a drier day.
Yeah, exactly. And then these are the wet ones in with the threaded grips on them. So that's kind of the design and the materials coming into it. So, extra performance.
There we go. It's all about the small margins, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
If anyone's interested, where can they pick them up? What suppliers are you at the moment?
Yeah, so any of the social media, Facebook, Instagram, and our website is www.tectionsports.com. So you can pick them up there.
Very good. So if somebody does predict the All-Ireland final, right, they also get the added bonus of getting the sticky gloves as well.
Exactly,
so perfect. Yeah. Seán, thank you very much for coming on. We'll have another quick short break, and then we'll be back to look ahead to the Camogie final.
Thanks very much.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, let's come across. We're going to bring the guys back on Zoom here now as well, and we will get people's attention and get previews. A massive weekend in terms of I suppose Galway sport. It is Galway versus Cork in Croke Park on Sunday, and it's about the only thing we have local interest in, and we come back. I suppose Gary as well. We were all, if we went back a little bit earlier on, we were all, I think a lot of us ended up picking Galway as well. Maybe it's the maroon tinted glasses, but it's a big opportunity now on Sunday for Galway, isn't it?
It is for sure, and we did chip them at the start of the year because of the panel they had and the performances they put together. I think they were disappointed with their showing last year, but they have been coming very, very strong, and they were very controlled in the semi-final. Not overly impressive, but controlled, and that's a good way to go into a final, I think. Whereas Cork had the big win over Kilkenny, so I think they're in a great position now going forward, and hopefully they can finish the job off.
Yeah, no, and we come back here, Seán, as well. We talk about teams being dethroned as well. You had Cork in the semi-final getting one over Kilkenny as well. Another enthralling finish to the game, I have to say.
Yeah, and obviously, look, I suppose, Cork again would have gone into that with obviously, they have been coming over the last while, but they would have seen that semi-final as, again, an opportunity to pit themselves against a fantastic team with a great history in Kilkenny. And again, probably went into the game with nothing to fear. But as Gary rightly said, now that they have got over that big one, they're coming in now to a final where maybe there's a lot of attention on them because they have got that huge win under their belt. So it's going to be a tight one. I think I will plump for Cork though. I think they've been coming with a bit of momentum. No, I didn't, but I fancy them. They've been coming with a while, and that win over Kilkenny will give them huge confidence once they can keep their feet on the ground. Anything can happen in an All-Ireland final, but I fancy them for this one, yeah.
And I suppose, Paul, the one thing that a lot of the talking points throughout the week really, well, I suppose you round it back to the actual semi-final itself, was a couple of red cards in either semi-final. You had the strange circumstance where Dervla Higgins was sent off for a foul that her teammate committed. Now, so that was one thing, and then you also had from the Cork side then as well, they have a player possibly suspended as well for a little bit of a stray kind of waving of the hurl, we put it like that. Just a couple of more talking points as if we didn't have enough from the games themselves.
Yeah, absolutely, and it kind of comes back then to go back to the hurling with Peter Casey, when he kind of had a slight headbutt with someone in the Waterford game there, but he got his rescinded. So I'd be hoping, I know Dervla Higgins won, she hadn't a clue what was going on, and
it was weird, wasn't it?
She was going over to the selectors and everyone in the stand wondering, is there any replay on social media or anything to see what happened, because she was clueless. But I hope they'll be back because you shouldn't miss an All-Ireland for something that you didn't do, unless you pulled someone across the head. Now, maybe you deserve.
That's
to miss
where you draw the line.
Yeah, that's maybe you draw the line.
Well, I suppose it's kind of the saving grace of the rule book as well. I think it was Emmett Herbert that was the one that made the offence in it. Now, I have to confess, I still didn't see properly what happened, but that was the one where there might have been a question mark Of course, no video evidence is allowed under the rule book. There's no sanctions afterwards. So that one was the two of them wiped off. The Olivia Cronin one seemed like there might be a bit more in it. I think it's maybe later on tonight we'll see how that one develops. But it probably has a big impact on the game.
Yeah, it does, and I think she's a free taker if I'm not mistaken. Like so, and I think she sent forward there. So like I think the Cork were bearing down on goal, and she was looking for the hand pass, and then the Kilkenny girl came right in her back, and she didn't like it.
Set it low.
Yeah, set it low. Yeah, probably the wrong way. The way Seán would do it now in a match, but yeah, it's just. I think that you're right. They're looking at that, and hopefully there'll be a decision tonight. But I don't think anyone should miss an All Ireland. You know, it's a big occasion. You've trained for 9 or 10 months, and just for maybe something a small, not very very cynical. I wouldn't be nice if you missed the All Ireland for something like that.
Yeah, and to bring you back in, Gary, we have a kind of a unique circumstance really on the Cork setup. The Cork captain, Linda Collins, hasn't really been first choice in recent games. Now, I guess the appeal tonight from Olivia Cronin, how that goes, will probably have an impact on the decision from the team selection. But there is a situation where on Sunday, Cork will be lining out without their captain.
That's a strange one, but to be fair to the player in question, she came on the last day and gave a captain's role. She put in a huge performance when she came on, and even the way she spoke in the media afterwards, again, exemplary. Her manager spoke very well as well. I thought his reasoning behind it, and it would have been very helpful towards the rest of the panel the way he spoke about it, in that he would have given a lot of light to how his thinking was behind it, and it would have been very clear that he is looking at his panel. Horses for courses probably comes into the question here as well, and I think the GAA has now finally caught up to the fact that we need 20 players. If you're going to win any championship, you need 20, and oftentimes that 20 won't be good enough on a given day if you have to change. So from semi-final to final, it could be different 20 players. So I think they dealt with it excellently. I personally don't like this idea of an appeal happening on a Wednesday or Thursday night for an Ireland final. I think it's a bad way to treat players. I think that should be dealt with on the Monday, directly after the game. I don't see any reason for this last minute. It affects training, it affects mindset, it affects families, for God's sake. It's hard on everyone involved in that. So going forward, hopefully it's a change we can make. But as far as the way they've dealt with it, Linda Collins' situation, it's exemplary in my opinion.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point you make, because even just simple things in team preparation, we've talked about the team there, but you're right, to strip it back to the personal point of view, the motor-wise, that's horrible preparation for what could be a massive game for you personally as well.
I just think there's a lot of heartache involved there that's absolutely unnecessary. I think it's old school, and it's we've got so many facets of our game now. We expect so much of players, we expect so much of management, we expect so much of those who are going to war. Why the rest of them around them can't get up to that speed is beyond me, but hopefully it won't cause too much angst, and we'll get both players back for the weekend and let the best two teams go at it, and let's see who's the best out of them with their full hand.
Absolutely. And just to touch back on it, Seán, on the whole thing about the captain not starting, I have memory in my head, you'll correct me a bit more, this has happened a couple of times in Kerry where there's been a captain that's probably been nominated from the clubs for say and hasn't been necessarily first choice. Does that have you witnessed anything like that in your camp personally? Does it affect things when you have that situation? I know Gary's made an excellent point there as well, where it's Cork have dealt with it very well, but it just seems like from the outside looking in, it seems like a very strange situation.
Yeah, maybe from the outside looking in, but in the inside, Jonathan, it's players just move on. At the end of the day, the management team, they pick on form, and they go with what they see in front of them in training. And whether you're the captain or you're not, if you're not doing, or if you're not on form, or if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, or as Gary said, if you may not fit into the game plan on a given day, unfortunately, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. The management pick a team or pick a panel based around what they feel is the best 22 that are going to win the game. And at the end of the day, whether you have the captain's armband or not, you've just got to take it on the chin. And I think the way that's been dealt in Cork has been excellent. It shows a really good, astute manager. It shows a manager who has the full backing and belief of his squad, and in particular, Linda Collins herself. Nobody's bigger than the team. So, and the best way to react is to come on and perform the way she did. She put all that aside, and she went out and played her heart out for the team to get to an All-Ireland final. So, it shouldn't matter. Yeah, absolutely. I've been involved in it down here. The way the Kerry captain is picked is probably a discussion that comes up every year. I know a lot of people have been calling for it to change. It hasn't, but anyway, that's for another night. But it can cause things like that from the outside looking in, but from the players on the inside, it doesn't really affect us. That the manager and the management team pick who they believe will do the job on the day. If you're captain or not, it doesn't really matter.
And I suppose, Paul, on that, to take it back to Galway, take it close to home, no doubt in terms of Galway captain Sarah Dervin there for 4 years now as well. Remarkable career. I think I saw something earlier on. It's 13 years since her first All-Ireland final appearance. Now, hopefully, we won't have a repeat of that with a loss to Cork as well. But just an unbelievable career, isn't it?
Yeah, and unfortunately, I had to mark her one time.
This should be good.
When I think it was either minor or under 16, we needed a challenge match, so we actually played the senior camogie ladies, and I was starting full forward and she was full back, so she was well able to pull and drag the jersey and all that kind of
stuff. Kept
you
scoreless that night, Paul, didn't she?
Yeah, that's not easy.
He was taken off, was he?
I was, unfortunately. Yeah,
have you unnodded yourself yet?
Yeah, still haven't got over it. Yeah.
Well, it's good that you're here on a public platform just to tell us how you really feel.
Like an AA meeting, yeah. But yeah, no, she has had an incredible career, and she's just a rock there at number 3, and it's good. It's a good way to start the spine of the backs as well. Like you need 6 solid backs there, to keep the opposite team scoreless or as much as you can. So she's a fantastic player, and hoping they'll do the job now at the weekend.
I suppose, Gary, looking briefly back at the semi-final, another very exciting finish to the game against Tipperary, but I think Galway showed a lot of character in that one to get that one over the line. It was down to 14 players as well for a chunk of it there as well. In the semi-final, that has to build a good bit of momentum coming into the final on Sunday.
I don't think they'll be satisfied with the performance overall, but they'll be satisfied that they controlled it and finished it. And knowing from my own days, and I'm sure the boys will admit this as well, semi-finals can be dodgy, as in you won't always pull out a massive performance, get over the line and get it over with, move on. And I think that's probably how they look at it. They're an experienced group now as well, and they'll understand that this is where they were supposed to be or wanted to be. So put that aside, learn a little bit about it and move on. That's it. And that's probably all it was for them, really.
And Seán, let's go around the houses here then as well. Looking forward to the final. Are you going? Do you have? I see you've a bit of maroon on there as well. Is that an indication of who you're going to lean towards for Sunday?
That's my club top, Jonathan Cremon GAA. We're starting our junior championship campaign at the weekend. I might as well give us a shout out there while we're at it. No, I'm going to go for my neighbours.
I thought you might change when I ask you the second time. No.
No, I wouldn't often back Cork now, but no, I just feel that the win over Kilkenny, if they can just keep calm and keep focused, not get carried away with it, they could do the business. They seem, as I said, they seem to have a very good manager and a good belief in the squad, and the same as that, they won a tough semi-final, which is good preparation. But I fancy them. Sorry to go against the Galway contingent here now, but I'm going to go for my neighbours.
It's okay. I have a feeling you're going to be outnumbered in this, unless I get the mood of the room very badly wrong. Paul, you're going to cancel out Seán there straight away, I would imagine.
I'd be going for a Galway victory. They got Oran McGrath back there. She did her AC or dislocated her shoulder there during the year, and she came on then the last day and she got a goal, and it's great to have her back. And then you've Siobhan the other corner as well, so, and Niamh then is that midfielder, half forward. So they've got Aoife Donoghue got player of the month. She's in top form at the minute, so I'd be going for Galway for the win. Yeah.
Okay, so that's Seán cancelled out. I suppose, Gary, it'll be great on Sunday. Well, hopefully there'll be a big Galway crowd as well in Croke Park and for the final as well. But your, I suppose, brief prediction for the game, are you going to out cancel Seán there and put the Galway back up?
It's a Galway win just for me. I think the Cork will come out of the long grass now of beating Kilkenny, and they've shown a bit of their hand. The few new players they brought in too might be just a step too soon for them, and hopefully the bit of experience Galway have over the last season or two losing will be enough to get them over the line on Sunday.
Oh, well, there you go. That's Seán, you're put back in your box there for a little while. Of a feeling you might be winding back in that box in a couple of minutes as well when we go on to another. There might be a couple of questions going your way. I know Paul is just dying here beside us. This is the moment he's been waiting for all week. We are going to look ahead to, of course, the Saturday's All-Ireland final. We're going to bring back in as well, delighted, and thanks to Enda Varley, he'll be with us in a couple of moments. But just before we go that, there's always the age-old thing of what the people on the street are going to think. We went out and about yesterday, the guys went around and got a bit of a feel of where the people of Galway are thinking and where they think Saturday's game is going to go.
My name is Leo Finn. I'm from Kinbarra, which is South Galway.
Ryan Durkin, I'm from Mayo, so Ball, Centre Mayo.
I'm Darren, I'm the manager here in McGilligan's Galway, and we're getting ready for the game now on Saturday. Can't wait, I'm a proud Mayo man myself.
I'm Galway man, but sure, if Mayo win, like the boss of Mayo man, so if you go to they win too, miss work for a few days, like, so see how it goes, like.
Tyrone gonna win.
And why do you think?
Mayo have the old curse. Tyrone, Mayo bet Dublin, but they get their heads broken.
I don't have a big belief in the curse. I have a big belief in it manifesting in the heads of the players. I don't believe in it, but I think when you're hearing that years and years and years, and in it must be some part when some part of the game is going against them, I think something must manifest in their heads. You know, a law of averages said we should have won one by now.
If you go back to 30 or whenever Brian Cody captained Kilkenny, back in the early 80s, he did away with a curse on James Stevens.
It's time for Mayo to step up.
It's time for Mayo to step up.
Curses are a thing of the past, and they're long gone, and they're buried and sunk and everything else. Mayo will have a fresh approach to all of this, and I hope they come out the other end of it.
Who are you thinking is going to come out on top?
I'm having trouble all week because everyone is telling me, you're going to do it. And it doesn't sit well right with a Mayo person, I don't think that. If I was from any other county, I'd say Mayo.
You're definitely going to win, though.
Yeah, we are. We're going to win this time.
What do you think the difference is with this team?
I think it's a young team, and it's like nice to have a few young bloods going up into it. And a lot of the younger people wouldn't believe in that curse at all. But it's just, I think, like the likes of Cillian O'Connor getting injured can actually play to our benefit, because like we're going in, we're not kind of limited with one forward. We have a load of fresh young players who are hungry to kind of like show themselves up in Croke Park.
Can't wait for it. The buzz will be great. The buzz was massive for the semi-final. We actually had Darren Cohen's mum and sister here, and they watched it here, and it was great. Yeah. Everyone loves beating the Dubs, you know.
Which player would you have been most impressed with, or a couple of players this year?
I think Matthew Ruan has been really good, and there's a few of them. Tommy Conroy stepped up in the last extra time, like last 15 minutes. I was very impressed with him the last day.
We hope for Mayo.
We hope and pray and cross everything for Mayo.
We hope the curse is gone.
I'm still for Tyrone. Come on, Tyrone.
My best friend is a Mayo man, and I'd like Mayo to win it. I think they should win it with the new type of game that they are playing, and I wish them well.
Oh, that was great stuff there from the guys there as well. I always love those clips. It's great to see the emotion on the street. I'm joined here by Kenny now as well, who's going to tell us the emotion on the comment box. Any predictions coming in? What are we looking like here? Where are people's mindsets going?
I'll get to the comments down in 1 second. Just wanted to reiterate that we have a competition running this evening. And so the competition is to win one of those pair of gloves, which was shown by Seán earlier on, the Tection Sports gloves. They're amazing, they're so good. But if anybody wants to comment in the comment section on either YouTube or the Facebook of the Play iPredict Facebook YouTube channels, if you want to predict the score of the final and who's going to win, the person who predicts the correct score will win the pair of gloves, or the person who's closest to the correct score will win the gloves. So to the comments then, let's see, I think everyone's favouring Mayo for this at the moment. So Mayo for Sam, that's all we need, boys, from Thomas Byrne.
Doesn't even bother with a score there.
No, it doesn't even bother with a score, no. And then any tickets going anywhere from every Mayo fan in the world. They're like gold now, I'd say, are they?
Stop with the reduced capacity, as if it wasn't going to be bad enough.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a scramble at the moment. We got Shane Canny, who has a prediction. He predicts Mayo 115 to Tyrone 13. So that's a Mayo win there, and he also says gloves look savage. He obviously wants to pair himself.
Yeah, he's really charming up Sean there, isn't he?
Dahi O'Malley says Mayo 0-14, Tyrone 110. So Mayo by a point.
Close game there.
Yeah, and we have a question here. Ask the panel who has the psychological advantage between Mayo and Tyrone on Saturday, with Tyrone having bet the favourites, but Mayo surely as determined as ever to get on the line, to get across the line finally. That was from Pádraig Daly.
We'll keep that for the guys in a couple moments' time.
Yeah, and we have one last prediction. I don't know who this is from, but it is Mayo 2-11 to Tyrone 1-13. So another Mayo win.
They are very much all in the one camp there.
All in the one camp, yeah, very.
Keep them coming in, folks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, a great prize as well, but a good bit of fun as well with the predictions there as well. So far, everyone is leaning towards Mayo. Thank you very much for that, Kenny. We'll bring in the experts as well, and I suppose this is the thing that everyone's been looking forward to, because it's almost like a couple of sleeps before Christmas. It's coming up to All-Ireland final weekend, and we're delighted to introduce the guys that will come on here as well. But look, let's bring back up. Let's make this nice and easy. And before we step forward into the exact looking forward to the final, we have to look back at the semi-finals. And Sean, have things recovered yet?
Oh yeah, they have, Jonathan. Yeah, look, it was difficult. Couple of days after the defeat to Tyrone. Obviously, look, Kerry would have, as supporters, we would have been very, very hopeful that we would have beaten Tyrone and had a crack at Mayo in the All-Ireland final. And look, we were very, very close. I suppose Tyrone are getting a lot of plaudits for their win, and rightly so. But at the end of the day, Kerry, were probably dead and buried coming to the end of normal time, and got themselves back into the game to force extra time out of it. They still kicked 22 points and lost the game by a point, probably having played, under par, particularly up front. So look, that's fine to say. It still doesn't make it any easier. Down here, look, we always gauge the year by either we get to a final or win it. So it's disappointing. However, we came up against a Tyrone team who, matched up pretty well all over the field with us, and set up a lot of traps for us that unfortunately we fell into. And I suppose that's the most disappointing part of it. But at the end of the day, the scoreboard didn't lie, and they came out deserved winners. And as one of your texters said there, we'll take a lot of confidence from beating Kerry and bring that into Saturday evening when they face off against James Horan and his Mayo men.
And just before we wrap up that, because I think with the greatest respect, I think everybody was shocked with that result. I think a lot of people saw the final lined up beforehand, but in terms of how passionate the Kerry supporters are, going to be a long winter, is it, in terms of post-mortems and all sorts of discussions on the back of that defeat, I'm sure? Yeah. There always is after defeat. I don't think that's primarily something that's just primarily a Kerry thing. I think that happens in every county after a difficult defeat, and questions are asked of management, questions are asked of players, and that's the game they're in. They have to take that on board. When you take the manager's gig, or you pull on a county jersey as a player, that's the name of the game. You face the criticism when it comes. You get the pat on the back when that comes as well. So of course there's going to be a lot of questions asked. Obviously, look, the big one I suppose down here is in terms of Peter Keane's reign. His term is up. Will he seek another term? Is it time for a change? All those things have to be looked at. What people might not realise as well is that there's a change in the Kerry County Board Executive as well. They have to elect a new chairman. So that's going to come into it. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of things sorted out. In terms of the Galway hurling manager situation that Paul referred to early on, I think it needs to be done quick.
the last thing players want is this thing to be hanging over them. But I'm sure it will be done fast. But Kerry are gone now, Jonathan. So it's all about Mayo and Tyrone now. So we can move swiftly on and look forward to that.
I just have to be very, very childish and petty because this guy to my left here will kill me. Paul, get your 30 seconds, get it out of your system.
No, I better not now. I'd pour out Seán there now.
That's not what you were saying earlier on.
No one was really expecting it because, like, Kerry had all the momentum, and like once Dublin won, Kerry was straight favourites in with the bookies, like, with Paddy Power. I think they were 1-2 or something to win it out. So like Tyrone just came with a physicality, momentum, no talk. It didn't look like there was any illness or any time off.
Careful now.
Like that, if truth be told, like, so but I don't know, maybe Kerry need a shot at the COVID, might get them over the line.
He's gone full Patsaplan on it here as well. You said you wouldn't take the mickey out of Seán, but you've just turned into the Kerry Yarra there almost. Gary, let's bring some sensibility back in this conversation. I suppose the first thing we will say is it's probably a final that nobody would have expected. Am I fair and accurate in saying that?
I think so, yeah. I think I haven't looked at things the way they were. Mayo couldn't write them off. I was fearful of them, and I thought after 40 minutes in Croke Park we had them, and then they came back with a storm in the second half. But as far as Tyrone goes, I think it's insulting to them to say that they were lucky at the weekend or anything like that. I think they've put in some big performances in Ulster, and it's the hardest place to come out of. And then on the opposite side of that, unfortunately for Kerry, there was no work done. Playing Cork was futile, and that probably ultimately undone them. Some of their decision making in Croke Park last day would be probably the biggest problem they're going to look at afterwards. And they look back at that video, some of the decisions made in front of goal were bamboozling, to be quite honest with you. There was hand passes over the bar that would have just killed the game. Some of their matchups they allowed to go on for 50-60 minutes, never changed them out. And even some of the stuff they ran into blind alleys, but they kept doing it, which was the concerning thing. Seán mentioned to me beforehand that sometimes when you're out there in the heat of battle and you get into these traps, even though you know you shouldn't go into them, it can be hard to get out of it. And I think the constructive chaos that Tyrone had brought to Kerry, they couldn't adjust on time, and that came down to a lack of championship games really. Whereas Tyrone had gone through Donegal and Monaghan, and they had learned a lot and were much more battle hardened. I know it was only a point in the end, and to be honest with you, we could easily be talking about the opposite here, but I think that battle hardness definitely stood to Tyrone, and it'll be interesting now for Sunday whether they can bring that again.
How does Mayo react coming into this situation now? Because it's almost like the unknowns of the unknowns. There's always the backup to the previous what's gone by with Mayo, and I don't think that really will have much effect on it. But the fact that both teams, with the greatest respect to each other, would probably have been thinking that they were looking forward, that they would have been playing either a Dublin or a Kerry in the final. Does that change things? Does that change the mindset, or is it just caveman tunnel vision? Just it's a final to be played.
In my opinion, Mayo won't get wrapped up in who they're playing. I think they have a system of play that is all about pace, power, and creating as much chaos as possible for the opponent. And yes, they'll have a couple of matchups at the back that they'll have to look at and get right. But after that, their own principles of play will come into it. As far as Tyrone goes, they're very much horses for courses. You mightn't see the same level of blanket defence as the last day for the entire game. Again, they'll go with matchups where Conor Myler and McGeary go for this will be interesting. I think Matty Donnelly's going to be another interesting one, and McKenna, I think they're going to get new roles. I think you're looking at Mark Bradley as well. I think he'll be a player. I think he'll actually start the next day. So I think Mayo have principles of play that they show every day, regardless of who they're playing against, and you know what you're getting. And I think Tyrone will adapt a little bit more, slightly more shapeshifter-like than Mayo. So it's going to be interesting, all right.
And Seán, I suppose we talk about the build-up in terms of the game for Kerry, in terms of not really knowing when the Tyrone game was going to be played, and then there was the delays and everything else went on that. I suppose not many people are talking about the flip side of how Mayo will react as well. Obviously they're being delayed out. Will that be almost kind of a little bit of a bonus, because that victory over Dublin was, I'd say, emotionally and physically, very, very challenging. Does that extra week kind of give them a chance to just kind of strain out the goose and go again sort of approach?
Yeah, look, it was a draining win over Dublin. A real intense battle, particularly the extra time, or getting themselves back into the game in normal time, and then obviously pushing on an extra time. And I know they probably would have had a lot of sore bodies, and you know, energy levels would have been really expended, you know, trying to get over the line in that one. And that week recovery after that will definitely have helped, you know. But they've had a bit of a wait now as well in the run into the final, you know. They could have probably done with playing it last weekend when it was supposed to be played. I don't think it's going to make a huge difference at the end of the day. It obviously probably gave some of their guys that were struggling with injury a little bit more time, Oisin Mullen, for instance. But no, I don't think it's going to make a huge difference. The one thing that I think will be interesting to see is, you know, Mayo will like to start fast and get, as Gary's saying, get this chaos going as quickly as possible. Tyrone are the opposite. Tyrone will be going out to slow it down, try and drag Mayo down to their pace. They did that against Kerry, particularly when they had the black cards. So it's going to be a real battle of styles in terms of that setup. You know, Mayo will want to really get going from the off, but Tyrone will just, you know, play their way into the game, and they'll want to slow Mayo down at every possible opportunity. So it's going to be interesting to see, especially in the early stages, you know, how the pattern of the game starts to pan out. But yeah, look, it's an All-Ireland final. It's up for grabs. You know, as the week has gone on, actually, you know, I've kind of been leaning towards Mayo since Kerry lost, but you know, as the week has gone on there, it's getting harder and harder to call, to be honest.
Just on that, in terms of the build-up, in terms of, like, I kind of like to take a strike back and look at the end of the Mayo-Dublin game, the euphoria of emotion, supporters, and even that Pádraig O'Hora interview as well, where it nearly brought anybody to tears, you know, watching it as well. Is that something that they're going to have to just kind of play a careful balancing act coming into the final? Because look, we all know the history of Mayo in finals, and you know, the huge, unbelievable supporters. But sometimes maybe that's a little bit of a hindrance in a strange way as well. That's something that James Horan is going to have to manage ahead of Saturday evening's game.
I don't think he will, Jonathan. I don't think he'll have to manage it at all, because I think it's a brand new set of players. It's you know, I obviously, look, we all know the whole Mayo situation with, you know, the last time they won an All-Ireland, etc. But, you know, that doesn't hang over the players at all. I'd be very surprised if they needed dealing with that. You know, it's every year is a different year. You know, they have a brand new set of players practically. You know, Gary and myself were talking, and Enda were talking before about how Mayo were probably ahead of where they actually are supposed to be, you know, in their plan when James Horan came back. You know, he's introduced a lot of young players. Those young players, you know, they might hear about the stuff going on with this curse in 1950, whatever. That doesn't, they don't take any heed of that. They're just looking at the game on Saturday. Who am I going to be marking? What do you need me to do? What do we need to do here to win this game? They won't need any managing there. And, you know, the older players knocking around the place, you know, Colin Boyle there, Gary was talking about him, is still involved. Aidan O'Shea, you know, these guys, the Durkins, the Lee Keegans, they won't leave any of that seep into the squad. They're just looking at one thing. They want to get up the Hogan steps for that cup and bring it home finally, and that's all they're worried about. Anything else really is outside noise.
And I suppose then, Paul, to focus on between the white lines of the pitch then as well, if you, maybe it's too simplistic, or, you know, taking it back at two, making it too easy and straightforward, but both teams from the off seem quite similar in their styles at times as well. It's going to be a fascinating tactical setup as well on Saturday.
Yeah, it is, and as Gary was kind of saying, like the matchups there between the Tyrone forwards and the Mayo backs is going to be, you know, going to decide a lot of the outcome of the game. You know, he was saying that he reckons Bradley will start, Joe McKenna, Matty Donnelly, like, who's going to pick up these lads, you know. So it is going to be, there's going to be a lot of high profile players going one-to-one battle, like, you know, and whoever comes out on top, and then we'll probably decide it. But it'd be interesting to see Aidan O'Shea on the other end. Like, you know, there's people saying that he shouldn't start, you know, because he didn't really have the best of games the last day. But he's a leader on the pitch, and I think he's more of a distraction as well. That if he is playing full forward or if he's playing midfield, Tyrone will have to, okay, we're going to have to man mark Aidan O'Shea with this player or that player. He's more of a distraction and kind of a target man that they have to look after. But it's going to be fascinating to see how both teams set up. I think it's going to be a slow game. I think, as Seán was saying, like, Mayo just want to get over the line. They just want to get over the line. I think the young lads will bring serious energy to the experienced lads like Keegan and all them kind of players. But it's going to be a really interesting game.
Just speaking about the Enda O'Shea situation of where do you play him, or we'll talk a little bit more about that in a while, but there was one flashback that came into my head, you'll remember it of course as well, the 17 final where Galway against Waterford in the final, they put Johnny Glynn in full forward. Now you can argue that he'd just been back from the States, he didn't really have a lot of hurling in him, I think he was actually taken off at half time. But even in that opening half, he created havoc to the Waterford sweeper system. The likes of Tyg de Burke, I remember being behind the goal. He didn't know whether to come or stay. He just created, even though there wasn't huge involvement in it. It was almost like, I don't know, some people call it a foil or whatever you want, but distraction. We could potentially see something similar with Aidan O'Shea on at the weekend.
I think James Horan will be wide to that, and I think he will use that. It's a pity Cillian O'Connor isn't playing, because he's another lad that, like, if Cillian O'Connor was corner forward or full forward, Tyrone would be like, okay, we're going to have to set up that Cillian O'Connor doesn't get a nice supply of ball, or we have someone that's on his shoulder, pity Ryan McMenamin or someone isn't around to kind of give him a few niggles in the back when the ball is down the other end. But I think Aidan O'Shea they'll be out to target him. It's more like the Johnny Glynn thing, like he was just there for like big powerful man to win the high ball and breaks. Like that would that's what he was there to do. It's kind of similar to Aidan O'Shea. If he's in full forward, it'll be high ball into him. Tommy Conroy or whoever will be breaking the ball, and hopefully they might sneak a goal, So he is the target man. He can come around midfield and be a playmaker, even though I reckon the Mayo midfielders this year have been phenomenal, really. Matthew Ruan and Conor Loftus, they've really found their feet, and it's a good partnership that they have going there. So Aidan O'Shea might come out as the third midfielder. I wouldn't say they'll switch any of them in. But the Tyrone lads will be looking out for him, and it's a bit more of a distraction, I think.
And Gary, you touched on it there, the potential changes that you see involved, but that whole kind of, if you want to look at that, that's fascinating really, because obviously you touched on as well another good point earlier on about how it's now a panel game, and you almost see different phases to the play. You play different styles for very little bits of the game as well, depending on whether you want to go defensive or a bit more all out. But the likes of O'Shea, whether he starts, where does he go, and even on the flip side then with Tyrone, with Colin McShane, we saw him come on to create a lot of damage to Kerry in the semi-final as well. There's so many of those discussion points coming into the game, isn't there really?
Yeah, it is fascinating, but I think we've gone to a stage now where we've got down to 5 and 6 and 7 minute periods. I don't even think the water breaks are that huge a factor anymore. I think when we're looking at the game after about 40 minutes, you're going to see that you could have McShane coming on in 45 minutes. You could have someone matched up for him to come on and mark him from the Mayo side. Something Kerry slipped up on, as Seán mentioned to me earlier on. I think you're going to see an awful lot of tactical play going on, but a big worry I have for Mayo is that they only had 8 points on the board after 63 minutes against Dublin. If you have 8 points on the board against Tyrone at 63 minutes, the game's over. They will shut you down, they'll shut the game down. So that's going to be a huge concern. I don't see Aidan O'Shea playing anywhere near the full forward line for the simple reason that he's up against two animals in Pádraig Campsey and Ronan McNamee, and they will actually relish him coming in there. They'll actually see him coming in there and they'll see him as an advantage. They had 4 points on the board from their keeper and their full back line the last day. And there was one picture in my mind of the Galway game where Shane Walsh left Aidan O'Shea for dead and left Lee Keegan for dead, and they won't want to see him anywhere other than the middle of the field doing what he does best, in my opinion, which is wrecking ball tackling. That's where he's going to be if he's going to play, and the scores are going to be an issue if they don't get on the board early. They need that chaos very, very early on, and as Seán pointed out, they're up against anti-chaos in Tyrone. So it's going to be down to the management. I think James Horan has been exceptional in what he's done this year. He has changed games in what he has done with players, even holding Kevin McLaughlin for periods and bringing him in at the right time. And on the other side, then you've got two guys who, in their first season after coming in after Mickey Hart, have been, I think, very, very, very good. So that's going to be a big thing. So you're going to see changes, and you're going to see different styles of play every 6, 7, 8 minutes, I think, personally. And the matchups will be the big thing in the game.
And Seán, one of the big things that was talked about a hell of a lot since the semi-final was in terms of the Kerry Tyrone semi-final, the kick-out situation, the way Tyrone pretty much retrieved and allowed Kerry to play it out, and then you had the flip side of it as well, where Kerry were so good at the long direct ball out the middle from the opposition kick-outs. Kick-outs again, we've obviously seen Cluxton, take this game to a whole new level, but you just feel that the game Saturday has the potential to be so tight that kick-out strategies are going to be so important here again.
Yeah, as always, Jonathan, as they have become over the last 10 years, really. Look, kickouts are a science in themselves now, really, and you know, we could dissect here for the next hour how we feel Tyrone are going to go with their kick out and how are they going to approach Mayo's and so on. But look, they both have looked at each other and seen flaws and seen strengths. And, you know, for me, like Tyrone, I think Mayo will just leave Tyrone have it. They'll leave them have their kick out. For me, Mayo are probably, and to touch on what Gary said there, they're the best tackling team that I've seen in the country for the last 5 or 6 years, without a doubt. They'll relish Tyrone taking short kickouts and trying to move it out through the centre. That's why I agree. I don't think Aidan Shea. I think James Horn has a massive call to make on Aidan O'Shea, by the way. I think it's a huge call, whether he plays or not. If he does play, I think the best they're going to get out of him is in and around the engine room, and for that reason, that he will set the tone for turnovers. He will set the tone if Tyrone do go short with their kick out and they try and bring it out through the lines, that he's all over them and he's trying to turn ball over high up the field, which Mayo are just fantastic at. They're the best in the country at it. So I can't see really Mayo trying to press on and turn Morgan's kick out over. They may do it stages depending on how the game is going, but I think early on they'll just leave Tyrone have it and try and force them into places they don't want to go, and the next thing they're doubling up on them, they're turning over. In terms of Mayo's kick out, Paul made a great point there. Loftus and Rowan, so mobile. They've got very, very good targets in terms of movement. Lee Keegan, Paddy Durkin getting out into pockets for the kick out. So I don't think Mayo will change up much really from that. Tyrone, will they probably maybe adapt or adopt a similar kind of approach? Will they leave Mayo have it and try and tackle them high up the field possibly? But Mayo are just very, very good movement from their kick out. But I have to agree with Gary, and we spoke with Enda as well earlier on. It's up front for Mayo that I would worry. I mean, are they going to get enough on the scoreboard to win an All-Ireland final? They just, I know they had a very good extra time and in the normal time against Dublin, but up to that they were pretty poor. Their conversion rate was pretty poor. They can't have that the next day, or they're going to have a lonesome story again in the final. But you'd like to think they've worked on that, and they have some very, very good forwards who can light it up on the day. But they're going to have a very, very good day against this Tyrone setup.
And firstly,
an interesting stat from during the week. Actually, GAA Insights had it up there during the week about the keepers. The Morgan's at 78% on his kickouts this year, but Henley in the last 2 games has been at 93%. And the interesting one was that Morgan is 2 from 8 from place balls, and the other fellow was 4 from 6. And that's going to be interesting for what's going forward. As Seán said there, I can't imagine Mayo are going to try and get Morgan kicking long every time. They might give him an odd one just to test him, because he has been fluttering in some games. He hasn't been picture perfect, even though he's had a lot of media attention. I think the pressure can be put on him, and people forget that Mayo absolutely crucified Cluxton at times. That's how good they were at pressing the kick out, and they're very clever where they put you on the kick out too. So I think it's going to be a big part of the game. And as Seán rightly pointed out, Mayo are superb at getting out on their own kick out. So that's going to be a big part of the game too. But for me, on that side of it, I'll give Mayo the edge. We'll see what Hendy can pull out. Hopefully he's due a big day in Croke Park for them.
And Paul, just to touch on a point that Seán made there about the Mayo forwards probably needing to add another bit of gas in the tank there, really. One of the things that I've heard being talked about a couple of times during the week is the fact, and it's probably and one of these situations easier said than done, but do Mayo need to add goals to their team as well? They've often, you see them, their midfield, as you touched on, are so good. A lot of their scores seem to come from a bit deeper, but to go that one step further, you'd imagine Tyrone won't be easy to break down at the weekend. Do they need to add a couple of onion bag scratchers?
Yeah, I think so. They'll help anyway, that's for sure, if they can. But it'll be awful hard, as Gary was saying, to get past Hamassey and McNamara back there. Like they don't let anyone pass easy. So obviously they've got loads of pace up there. Tommy Conroy and other lads up there, like they've got serious pace. I do agree with they only got 14 points against Mayo. A lot of them were frees, let's say. So they will need a bigger conversion rate if they are going to get over the line. They'll probably need 1 or 2 goals, and they'll have to be firing off all cylinders to get over the line. So yeah, hopefully they'll do the job.
And one of the things about the, again, I heard discussed a lot, is how both teams in their equivalent semi-finals kind of stayed in the game for long periods. It was more kind of, let's defend first, then attack. If both teams do that on Saturday, we're going to have a chess match for the first half.
Yeah, it looked like it. Yeah, like both teams stayed in it there, as you said. Like, you know, it was 10-4 at half time for the Dublin Mayo. Like, they didn't perform at all, and then it was just pure heart. Probably, as Seán was saying, or Gary was saying, like James Horan made some very good decisions on the sideline, got them back into it, and then they just steamrolled in extra time. So probably will be a game of chess for a long time. Both sides will see what ways are setting up, who's marking who, which way you're going to attack us, and we'll try and counteract you. I think, I know Gary was saying water breaks aren't important. I think they'll be very important in this game, because they'll be, after 15 or 17 minutes, the management will come in and say, you know, Mayo are playing like this, or Tyrone are playing like this. We need to go a different route about attacking or defending. So it's there's a lot of questions to be answered, and Saturday's game is going to be an excellent one.
And I suppose on that, Gary, to go one step further, if both teams do set up as cagey as some people will make out, particularly in the opening half, potentially, the old cliche of long range points and getting over the blanket is going to be so crucial, whoever has their shooting boots on at the weekend.
Yeah, and I think the referee in question as well, he won't ref it like it has been refed in the two semi-finals, where there was a lot of contact let go and a lot of heavy hitting. He tends to try to be technical on a tackle. That brings its own trouble, because if you try and be technical on every tackle, you're going to get a few of them wrong, and he has done in the past as well in big days. So I think if you're going to go long range shooting in Croke Park on an Ireland final day, you might find one or two out of your 6 forwards are hot. You're not going to get 6 of them, and you're looking in for the Ronan McNamee's I was talking about, and the Park Camp season, these guys getting up the field and sneaking a point or two. That could make a difference, and that will put pressure on Mayo, because they're going to be relying on Lee Keegan and Paddy Durkin to get up there as well, to get scores. So as Seán pointed out, 8 points in 63 minutes isn't going to cut it in an All-Ireland final, and that's where the crux of it is for Mayo. Can they be on 12 points at 63 minutes rather than 8? And if they are, then I give them a real chance.
And I suppose, Seán, without again rehashing too many wounds, but the consensus by some people was that Tyrone lived on the edge in terms of the tackling and the off the ball stuff and whatnot in the semi-final, and definitely, I suppose, pushed Kerry's buttons. The referee, John McQuillan, like, he's an inexperienced ref, but Gary's touched on his style there at times. He's going to have a big impact in the game as well, because if Tyrone know they can do that, or the same with Mayo as well, it's going to have a big impact in style of play and tactics and whatnot, isn't it?
Yeah, look, the ref is obviously going to play a pivotal part. The Kerry Tyrone game was hard hitting, but it was what it was. It's an All-Ireland semi-final. You have to take that and take that part and parcel of the game. Some day it goes for you, some days it doesn't. Of course, it's going to be a part of the final as well. But Joe McQuillan, I agree 100% with Gary. I've played in games that he's refed. I'm sure Gary has. He is fairly on point about the tackle. But look, from a neutral's point of view, you hope to God that he just leaves it flow, and so be it. If there is a few heavy tackles in it, obviously punish where they need to be punished. But at the end of the day, these guys are fighting for a Celtic cross, and you're not going to get it easy, and so be it. Leave it flow, leave them at it. I think you've got two very well conditioned, prepared teams. Physically, they're in great shape. So just let them at it, and may the best team win. But I think Mayo as well. We talk about their forwards scoring up one end, but I think one big disappointment for Kerry was maybe the lack of work rate out of our forward unit when we didn't have the ball. I think that's one thing that the Mayo forwards will have to be on their toes, that when they don't have the ball, that they're tracking Tyrone runners from the back. Gary already mentioned the joy the Tyrone defenders got by just driving forward and getting scores against Kerry when they mightn't have been tracked by our forwards, So I'm sure James Horn will have ticked that box over the last couple of weeks, and that can't happen the next day. Even if the game is not going for you up front, the one thing you can control is your work rate. So just make sure you tag your man and don't leave them out easy, because Tyrone will punish you if you do. So even though it mightn't be going for you on the scoreboard, try and work hard for your team, and that you stop forward runners, because Tyrone are excellent at it.
And I suppose, Paul, before we kind of come to wrap it up and get everybody's prediction on it, we've seen both semi-finals go to extra time. Would you be surprised if this one was to extra time and another few coins in the floodlights of Croke Park?
No, it wouldn't be. It could easily happen. I think we kind of talked about a lot of the aspects of the game, and I think it's going to be tight. Everyone's kind of predicting it's not going to be a one-way. Like other All-Irelands with Dublin have been in, that they've won by 10 or 12 points or so. I don't think it's going to be anything like that. It's going to be real cagey, it's going to be tight. Wouldn't be surprised if there's extra time at all, and it should be a thriller of a game. Right, we'll do the rounds then and try and get a prediction on it and see where your mindset is going. I have to say, personally, I seem to change my mind in almost every hour. The more sometimes I think Mayo is a dead cert, and then I'm like, Tyrone, have they a bit of a couple of aces up their sleeves again as well? But we'll put you all under the spot here now. I'll start with you, top left on my screen, Gary. Your prediction for Saturday evening. Where's your mind going at the moment?
It's all over the shop, to be honest with you. I'm
glad I'm not the only one.
I'm enjoying the build-up, and then I have things like the GAA insights on Twitter there are blowing my mind altogether, because we're throwing stats into the limelight every day, and even little bits and pieces about the tackle count and the percentage turnovers and where on the pitch the turnovers were from the last day are starting to bend my mind a small bit now. Every single part of me is hoping to God Tyrone can get over the line, but I'm petrified of Mayo, to be honest. Petrified of James Horan. Absolutely petrified of James Horan. I think he's possibly the best manager in the inter-county game at the moment, and the last 2 years have proved that. I think his learning and his ability to learn quite fast. I don't know who's with him, behind him, giving him information, or what is happening. Kerry McDonald honestly has to stay in this, but their on-field decision making over the last 12 months has been exceptional. And unfortunately, I was on the sideline and on the pitch when it happened as well, and their communication is phenomenal. So for that reason alone, even though every part of me is telling me don't say it, but I have a feeling Mayo might just squeak this one.
Spoken like a true North Galway man there, Gary.
That's horrible.
Okay, so that's one on the board for Mayo. Down to you, Seán. Where's your mind going? You're probably like us, the rest of us, are you kind of flipping and tossing and turning?
Yeah, very difficult. As I mentioned earlier, I probably would have fancied Mayo. Directly in the aftermath of what happened to Kerry and against Tyrone, and watching Mayo, score such a brilliant victory over Dublin. But as the time has gone on, and having watched the Kerry Tyrone game back now, I am leaning towards Tyrone. Having seen them, up close and personal in Croke Park against Kerry, I just feel okay. They rode their luck at times in terms of the goals I suppose they got, but they ground out a super victory, and they're coming with a real stubborn and tough game plan. And they've in the mix of all that, they have some really top footballers, and with that point can't be ignored. They're really good players. They've got Cathal McShane coming off the bench as well, a man that can change any game on his day, and he did against Kerry. So I have a few Mayo friends actually. I've a good friend from Achill, and I've another good friend that moved to the area a good few years ago. And for them, I'd love it. My heart for them, I really would love it after a lot of pain and torture they've been through for a long time. But my head is just starting to lean towards Tyrone. So I'm going to go Tyrone by a couple of points.
Okay.
Sounds better, all right, in fairness.
One apiece. Cast and vote. Paul, no pressure. Seán is torn. Gary is torn as well. Nobody's happy at the moment. Where on earth are you going?
Can I go for extra time? It's going to be. We've kind of touched on a lot of the points in the game, and I as Seán said there about the subs like Cathal McShane to come in. You look at Mayo as well. Like Darren Cohen came in against Dublin, got a score. Jordan Flynn came in, got a score. Their bench really had a big impact as well. So as we kind of say, Mayo need to score, and they have that kind of firepower in the bench, and I just think they have a bit more than Tyrone, and I'd be the same as Gary. It might kill me to say it, but I'm still torn between the two of them, but if I had to pick, I'd say Mayo just by a couple of points.
Okay, well maybe that's an indication of the way the game is going to go on Saturday night. Opinions well and truly on the middle of the road there. I suppose just firstly to say apologies, we've had some technical difficulties. We haven't been able to get Enda on the call here, so we'll get him again. No doubt he will be looking forward to the game on Saturday evening as well. A big thank you as well to Corofin GAA for getting on board with us. We've had a hell of a lot of fun with their prediction game, and don't forget as well, if your club wants to get involved, just get in touch with us on our social media platforms. A big thank you as well to Ray and the team in Unbound here beside us. Even there's a military operation next door getting this show on board as well. Big thank you to our guests, for Paul coming in, for Gary and Seán to coming on the Zoom call as well. I've thoroughly enjoyed the preview. Really looking forward to next week, next Saturday night's game even. And I suppose I'm not going to go full singing, but that only leaves one question. Mayo, is Sam Maguire coming home to Mayo? Safe trip, folks. Everyone in going up to the game, enjoy it, and slán in Ihiwa.
Thanks very much, guys.